Sarah makes $80,000 a year. Jake makes $40,000. Same year, same country, same starting point in life. But every month, Jake has more money left over to save and spend freely than Sarah does. Not close to as much. More. That's not a typo. Sarah earns double Jake's salary, and Jake still ends the month with more actual money in his pocket. Not because Jake is smarter. Not because Sarah is careless. Because of something almost nobody calculates, the cost of the paycheck itself. Everyone talks about gross salary like it's the whole story. $80,000 sounds like freedom. $40,000 sounds like struggle. But gross salary is a number on a job offer. It's not the number that determines your life. I'm Kevin. This is Prosperity Levels. Today I'm showing you exactly why so many $80,000 earners feel broke, why a $40,000 earner can outsave them, and the specific math behind what I call the cost of the paycheck. By the end, you'll know how to calculate your own real number, the 5 things silently draining high earners dry, and how to fix it without taking a pay cut. Quick note, not a financial advisor. This is educational. Talk to professionals. Let's break down where Sarah's money actually goes. Here's the number nobody looks at: take-home pay. After taxes, Sarah's $80,000 becomes roughly $60,000 a year. That's about $5,000 a month landing in her account. Sounds like plenty. Jake's $40,000, after taxes, becomes roughly $32,000 a year, about $2,670 a month. Still less than half of Sarah's take-home. So far, the math makes sense. Sarah should be way ahead. But take-home pay isn't the number that matters. What matters is what's left after the cost of having that job and that income. And that's where the story flips. Sarah's $80,000 job is downtown. To live within a reasonable commute, her rent is $2,100 a month. She still has $450 a month in student loans from the degree that got her the job. She needs a reliable car for the 45-minute commute. $500 a month. Her share of health insurance, $200 a month. And there's a quiet cost nobody puts in a budget line: professional wardrobe, parking, coffee and lunches with the team. Call it $350 a month. Add it up. $2,100 plus $450 plus $500 plus $200 plus $350. That's $3,600 a month just to maintain the job and the life required to keep it. Out of her $5,000 take home, Sarah has $1,400 left over. That's it. That's her real number. Now Jake. He lives in a smaller city, modest 1-bedroom, $800 a month. No student loans. He went to community college and paid cash. His car is paid off. Insurance is $120 a month. His health insurance is $100. His job doesn't require a wardrobe or a commute that eats his week. Maybe $50 a month in job-related costs. Now Jake. He lives in a smaller city, modest 1-bedroom, $800 a month. No student loans. He went to community college and paid cash. His car is paid off. Insurance is $120 a month. His health insurance is $100. His job doesn't require a wardrobe or a commute that eats his week. Maybe $50 a month in job-related costs. Over a year, that's $16,800 left over for Sarah. $19,200 left over for Jake. A $2,400 gap in Jake's favor on half the salary. Here's the ratio that really tells the story. Sarah controls 28% of her own take-home pay. The other 72% is already spoken for before she makes a single choice. Jake controls 60% of his. He decides what happens to more than half his paycheck. Sarah barely decides what happens to a quarter of hers. This isn't a story about Sarah being bad with money. Sarah is disciplined. She doesn't buy things she doesn't need. She just has a job that costs a lot to keep. Let me show you what happens when someone earning the same $80,000 restructures the equation. Meet Maria. Same $80,000 salary as Sarah. Same industry. But Maria works remote. She lives in the same modest city Jake lives in. Her rent, $900 a month. She paid off her student loans aggressively in her first 3 years working, so that payment is gone. Her car is paid off. $120 a month insurance. Health insurance, $150. No commute. No downtown wardrobe. No client lunches. Maybe $50 a month. Add it up. $900 plus $120 plus $150 plus $50. That's $1,220 a month. Same take home as Sarah, $5,000 a month. Maria's leftover, $3,780 a month. That's $45,360 a year she controls. Compare that to Sarah's $16,800 a year. Same salary, same tax bracket, same effort at the job. The only difference is where Maria lives and what she owes. Maria's income didn't change. Her cost of having that income did. This is the part that should bother you. Sarah isn't behind because she earns too little. She's behind because her income is location locked and debt locked. Every dollar of her raise gets absorbed by the zip code her job requires and the loans that got her there before she even sees it. Now, here's the number that makes this permanent, not temporary. If Jake invests that extra $2,400 a year advantage over Sarah at 8% for 30 years, that gap alone becomes roughly $272,000. Not from working harder, not from a better job, from a lower cost of having the job he has. And if you run Maria's full advantage over Sarah, that $28,560 a year gap invested at 8% for 30 years, it compounds into over $3 million. Same salary, same years worked. One structural decision about where to live and how much debt to carry. This is why how much you make is the wrong question. The right question is, how much of what you make is actually yours? Sarah makes more. Jake keeps more. Maria makes the same as Sarah and keeps almost triple. Here's the uncomfortable question. Why does nobody calculate this? Why do people take the $80,000 job in the expensive zip code without running these numbers first? A few reasons, and they're all predictable. First, we anchor on gross salary because it's the number that gets announced. Nobody posts their take-home pay on LinkedIn. Nobody celebrates, I have $1,400 left over a month. The way they celebrate, I got the $80,000 offer. The number that gets social recognition is the number that means the least. Second, the job comes with built-in costs before you've spent a dollar on lifestyle. This is different from lifestyle creep, which is choosing to spend more. This is structural: the commute, the wardrobe, the zip code near the office, the degree required to qualify. You didn't choose to spend it. The job required it as the price of admission. Third, bracket creep anxiety. A lot of people quietly fear that earning more pushes their entire income into a worse tax bracket, so a raise isn't worth it. That's a myth. Only the income above each threshold gets taxed at the higher rate, not everything you earn. But the fear is common enough that it shapes decisions, and it distracts from the real issue. It's not the tax bracket draining the paycheck, it's the cost of the job. Fourth, benefit cliffs. As income rises, you can lose access to subsidies, tax credits, or reduced cost programs that lower earners qualify for. A raise that looks like $5,000 more on paper can net out to far less once you account for what you stop qualifying for. Nobody warns you about this before you take the promotion. Fifth, and this is the quiet one, golden handcuffs. Once you're earning $80,000, you feel locked into the lifestyle that job requires: the commute, the wardrobe, the zip code, because leaving any of it feels like a step backward, even if keeping it is costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars over your career. Let's rank the 5 things that actually eat a high income, from smallest to most expensive. Killer number 5, debt service that follows you from a lower income season of life. Sarah's $450 a month in student loans was a smart decision at 22. At 30, earning $80,000, it's still quietly taking $5,400 a year that could be invested. Over 30 years at 8%, over $600,000. Killer number 4, job required wardrobe, commute, and social costs. Individually, these feel small: parking, coffee, the occasional team lunch. Collectively, Sarah's $350 a month is $4,200 a year, invested over 30 years, roughly $475,000. You're not buying status here. You're paying an entry fee just to keep showing up. Killer number 3. The car you need because of where the job is. Sarah's $500 a month for a reliable commuter car is $6,000 a year. That's not a luxury upgrade, it's required infrastructure for a job that assumes you'll drive 45 minutes each way. Invested over 30 years, roughly $680,000. Killer number 2. Health insurance and benefit cliff effects. Higher earners often pay more out of pocket for coverage and lose access to subsidized options. Lower earners qualify for. Even a modest $100 a month difference compounds into over $135,000 across 30 years. Money spent maintaining coverage, not building wealth. Killer number 1. The biggest by far. Housing tied to the job's assumed zip code. Sarah's $2,100 rent versus Jake's $800 or Maria's $900 is the single largest gap in this entire comparison. A $1,200 a month difference is $14,400 a year, invested over 30 years at 8%, over $1.6 million. Housing isn't just your biggest expense, it's the biggest silent decision in this entire equation, and almost nobody treats it as optional. Notice what these 5 things have in common. None of them are lifestyle upgrades in the traditional sense. Nobody's buying a boat. They're the invisible cost of admission for holding a higher paying job in the location that job assumes you'll live. You don't need a pay cut to fix this. You need to see the 5 leaks and close them deliberately. 5 rules. Rule number 1. Calculate your real number, not gross salary take home minus the true cost of having the job, housing, debt, transportation, insurance, and the invisible costs of showing up. This single number tells you more about your financial reality than your salary ever will. Rule number 2. Audit which job costs are actually required versus assumed. Does the job truly require living downtown? Or did you assume it did because that's where everyone else in the role lives? Remote or hybrid roles, a shorter commute in a cheaper neighborhood, or negotiating flexibility can cut this cost dramatically without changing your income at all. Rule number 3. Attack debt from a lower income season before you scale your lifestyle at a higher income. A $450 a month loan payment felt manageable at $50,000. At $80,000, aggressively paying it off in 2 years instead of carrying it for 10 reclaims tens of thousands of dollars in future compound growth. Rule number 4. Decouple your housing decision from your job's assumed status. This is the single highest leverage move in this entire video. The zip code that makes sense for your title is often the largest wealth transfer of your career, moving from your investment account into your landlord's. Rule number 5. Track discretionary not gross income as your scoreboard. Every time you evaluate a raise, a new job, or a lifestyle decision, ask what it does to the number you actually control, not the number on the offer letter. This is the same principle from the last video. Automate the gap before your job's hidden costs absorb it. Here's what this is really about. We're taught to chase the bigger salary number as if it automatically means a bigger life. Nobody teaches you to chase the bigger remainder, the number left over after the job has taken its cut. And the system benefits from this confusion. Landlords near business districts profit when higher earners assume they must live close to work. Lenders profit when the right degree comes with debt that follows you for a decade. The whole structure is built around the gross number, because that's the number that keeps you spending like you're already there. Meanwhile, the people who actually build wealth on a mid-size income aren't earning less attention, they're just optimizing the number nobody else is looking at. Jake isn't sacrificing his future to live comfortably now. He's simply not paying an invisible entry fee that Sarah pays every single month without realizing it. Maria didn't earn more than Sarah, she just refused to let her job's assumed lifestyle write her budget for her. Same title, same paycheck, a completely different financial trajectory, compounding for 30 years in her favor. The real skill isn't earning $80,000. It's making sure $80,000 actually behaves like $80,000 instead of quietly behaving like $40,000 while everyone around you assumes you're doing fine. If this reframed how you think about your own paycheck, hit the like button. It tells the algorithm, people want the real math behind income, not just another video telling you to make more money. Alright, final thoughts. Sarah makes $80,000 and keeps $16,800 a year. Jake makes $40,000 and keeps $19,200 a year. Maria makes $80,000, structured differently, and keeps $45,360 a year. Same tax system, same country, 3 completely different outcomes, and the salary explains almost none of it. The 5 killers: debt carried past its usefulness, job required costs disguised as normal, a car required by geography, health insurance, and benefit cliffs, and housing tied to a zip code you never actually had to accept. 5 rules: calculate your real number, audit what's actually required versus assumed, attack debt before you scale lifestyle, decouple housing from job status, and track discretionary income as your real scoreboard. You don't need a bigger salary to feel richer. You need to find out how much of the salary you already have is actually yours. For most people earning $80,000, the honest answer is less than a third. Open your Notes app right now. Write down your take-home pay. Then write down every cost that exists specifically because of your job. Housing, commute, debt, insurance, wardrobe. Subtract it. That number is your real income. That's the number to build a plan around. Subscribe for more. Next video: why a $50,000 remote job can out-earn a $90,000 city job. Once you run the real math, you'll want to see the numbers on that one. This is Kevin. This is Prosperity Levels. I'll see you in the next one.